Of the land that we took over at that time, I gave the Reubenites and the Gadites the territory north of Aurora by the Arnon Gorge, including half the hill country of Gilead, together with its towns. The rest of Gilead, and also all of Bashan, the kingdom of Og, I gave to the half-tribe of Manasseh. The whole region of Argob and Bashan used to be known as the land of the Rephaites. So there's the Rephaites again. Jair, a descendant of Manasseh, took the whole region of Argob as far as the border of the Geshenites and the Maccathites. It was named after him, so to this day Bashan is called Havoth Jair, which in my footnotes means the settlements of Jair. And I gave Gilead to Machir. But to the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave the territory extending from Gilead down to the Arnon Gorge, the middle of the gorge being the border, and out to the Jabbok River, which is the border of the Ammonites. Its western border was the Jordan and the Arabah, from Kinneth to the sea of the Arabah, the Salt Sea, below the slopes of Pisgah. These locations don't mean a whole lot to me, I'll admit, because I've never been there. I can look up maps of where these things are, where they lay out on a map, at least to the best of our understanding. Some of these places we may know pretty well where they are, some of them we may not be so certain. But it doesn't really mean a lot to me because I've never been, I've never seen it. But it's in here, I'm reading it as it is written here in this copy of this Bible. And so that was the territory of this area. I commanded you at that time, the Lord your God has given you this land to take possession of it. But all your able-bodied men, armed for battle, must cross over ahead of your brother Israelites. However, your wives, your children, and your livestock, and I know that you have much livestock, may stay in the towns I've given you. And so the Lord gives rest to your brothers as he has to you. And they too have taken over the land the Lord your God is giving them across the Jordan. After that, each of you may go back to the possession I have given you. So that is somewhat of a summary of events, of course. We read about in Numbers. It was a more involved back and forth negotiation than that. It wasn't simply a matter of Moses telling these people who they were going to live. He didn't even have the idea. They came to him with the idea. So this isn't as simple as Moses simply telling them to live here. In fact, he rebuked them for the idea at first. But this is a summary. Okay, this is an editorial summary of the events that happened. Again, think of it like a president or a leader, a figure, an important figure, giving like a farewell address. Kind of recapping events, getting across his message one last time before he leaves. Whether he gets into his helicopter and then flies off, or he, whatever. You know, he knows he's going to retire, resign, die, whatever. In this case, he's going to die. He knows he's going to die. But so he's kind of giving a recap of the events from his perspective at this time. Maybe describing them a little bit differently than they happened at the time, but the people listening to him would know what he's talking about. They would know the point he's getting across. At that time I commanded Joshua, you have seen with your own eyes all the Lord your God has done to these two kings, Sihon and Og. The Lord will do the same to all the kingdoms over there where you are going. Do not be afraid of them. The Lord your God himself will fight for you. At that time I pleaded with the Lord, O sovereign Lord, you have begun to show to your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do the deeds and mighty works you do? Let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that fine hill country in Lebanon. So he wanted to see that land. He was going to die without being in there, without getting to go in there. But oh, how he wanted to see it. But because of you, the Lord was angry with me and would not listen to me. That is enough, the Lord said. Do not speak to me any more about this matter. So apparently Moses had been trying to get out of his death sentence in front of God. Apparently Moses had made, I'm assuming he probably made more than one effort to convince God to change his mind. Go up to the top of Pisgah and look west and north and south and east. Look at the land with your own eyes, since you are not going to cross this Jordan. But commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, for he will lead this people across and will cause them to inherit the land that you will see. So we stayed in the valley near Beth Peor. That pretty much leads us up to where we are right now. That is a recap of events, basically from the time they left Egypt until now. I'm not sure what that cat is doing. I guess she's just going to sit up there. They like to sit on top of this thing. They like to sit on top of this computer desk. This is a mobile computer desk here. I usually push it across the room when I'm not using it. When I am using it, I like to pull it out here. Set it right here. I usually sit on a different chair. I don't usually sit on it like this, but. And they like to get on it. I didn't think about. This actually is a custom-made desk. I had my best friend's wife, actually. I commissioned my best friend's wife to build this desk for me. She's into carpentry and stuff like that. She also built this TV stand for me. I have a custom-made TV stand over there. And she built that too. Actually, she built that first. I had her do that. And then a few years later, I had her do this. And I did not think at the time. I didn't even have a cat when I had her do that. I was between cats at that time. And that was just a flat TV stand. But this, I had these cats already by the time I got this desk. And I didn't even think about how much these cats would like to climb on this thing. Because they do. I didn't get it for that. I didn't get it for the cats to use as their own personal private jungle gym. But they like to do that. They sure do. Anyway. So that takes us up basically to where we are today. We have pretty much recapped the history from the time they left Egypt until now. And now we are ready to talk about what they need to do as they get ready to move into the land. Right across the river. Hear now, O Israel, the decrees and laws I am about to teach you. He doesn't actually get around to teaching them these decrees and laws, like 10 more chapters. He's got a lot of preparation to get to before he even gets to the decrees and the laws. Follow them so that you may live and may go in and take possession of the land the Lord, the God of your fathers, is giving you. Do not add to what I command, and do not subtract from it. Do not add to what I command you, and do not subtract from it. But keep the commands of the Lord your God that I give you. You saw with your own eyes what the Lord did at Baal Peor. The Lord your God destroyed from among you everyone who followed the Baal of Peor. And we read about that. That was the incident that Balaam was responsible for. But all of you who held fast to the Lord your God are still alive today. See, I have taught you decrees and laws as the Lord my God commanded me. He's been doing that since they left, pretty much. Since they got to Sinai and he first started giving them the first batch of laws in the middle point of Exodus. All throughout the rest of Exodus and the book of Leviticus and then throughout the book of Numbers, he's been giving them more laws. He's got some more to give them too. He's going to restate a bunch of them and give them a few more here too in Deuteronomy. See, I have taught you decrees and laws as the Lord my God commanded me, so you may follow them in the land you are entering to take possession of. Observe them carefully, for this will show your wisdom and understanding to the nations, who will hear about all these decrees and will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. What other nation is so great as to have their gods near them the way the Lord our God is near us whenever we pray to him? And what other nation is so great as to have such righteous decrees and laws as this body of laws I am setting before you today? So if they had followed this law correctly, if they had lived the lives that God wanted them to live, they would have been a light to the nations around them and would have witnessed through simply their actions. Now, they really weren't ever commanded to go out and proselytize the way the church is today. So it's not directly equivalent in that regards. I'm blurry. Let's push that back a bit. So it's not directly equivalent in that regards. Because as far as I can tell, searching the Old Testament inside out, it doesn't appear as though the ancient Israelites were ever really told or commanded to go witness the other nations in the way the Christians are today. to go out into the world and make this. It doesn't seem like it, but their lifestyle was supposed to be such, if they follow these laws consistently and put them into practice, that their lifestyle was supposed to be such that they would naturally attract the nations around them that would wonder, like, why are these people living so well? What is it about these people that allows them to live this way? I'd like to have that. I like to have that prosperity and abundance and peace, and have my God as close to me as their God seems to be to them. So it was supposed to provoke a natural inquiry and wonder, maybe even a little bit of jealousy and envy in the people around them, who would then be interested in why, what makes Israel different? What makes Israel's God different than my God? That goes back to Genesis 1 again. Okay, that's the whole point of Genesis 1, is to show how Israel's God is different than all the other gods out there that man has come up with. And how the only God we need to worry about, to pay attention to, or worship, is Israel's God. These others are not made up. Even if I'm not totally convinced that Moses didn't even believe in some of these other gods. It's like, now later on, the prophets are going to be very clear about saying that these things are just stone, that they're just lifeless statues and brick and stone, brick and bark, bark of a tree, stone, cat, idol, whatever it is you make it out of. It's just something that you've made. Moses doesn't get quite that explicit about denying these gods. I'm not sure. I mean, honestly, I really don't. Okay, I don't believe Moses worshipped these other gods, at least not after his Egyptian days. Maybe in Egypt he did, maybe for a while. I mean, we do know from other passages in the Old Testament that while the people were in Egypt, they did become Egyptianized. And that's part of the reason why God allowed them to go into slavery, to the Egyptians to enslave them in the first place. The actual text of Moses doesn't make that very clear. We read about that in other books later on about that. And Moses may have been Egyptianized too, for at least for a while. He didn't leave Egypt until he was 40. That's a long time. I just turned 40 a few weeks ago. I don't know where in his 40th year, whether it's at the very beginning or at the very... this is happening the 11th month of the 40th year after they left Egypt. Okay? So I don't know if Moses was 40 years and 1 month or 40 years and 11 months when he left Egypt. But he was still 40, which is as old as I am today. And that's a long time. I mean, that'd be my entire lifetime at this point, to be a prince of Egypt. And I don't know how much of that time he spent worshiping Egyptian gods. I would imagine part of that he probably did, at least part of that, because he would have been taught that. I think he always probably knew about the Hebrew God too, because he had his mother there in the palace with him as his nurse mother, and so I think that he probably knew about the Hebrew God from the beginning of his life too. But I don't know how long it took him in his life to sort out his priorities about which God he was going to serve. I'm not sure he would have had that all straightened out by the time he was 15 or 20. I think it might have taken him 40 years to figure that out. So I don't know. I really don't. Okay, I do know that later on the prophets are going to get much more explicit in condemning these gods as not being real, as being all just figments of man's imagination, made up, the work of a craftsman. Moses doesn't quite take it that far, so I'm not sure if Moses necessarily thought that. Moses does believe this is the only God that's really worth worrying about or bothering with. This is the God we need to worship. Israel's God is the God. The other gods of the nations, whatever they are, whether we accept them existing or whether we think they're all demons and we're actually worshiping demons, or if it's all just entirely made up figments of our imagination, whatever we think they are, we don't have to worry about them. They're not God. They're not Israel's God. They're something else. Whatever they are, they're something else. So if Israel had done this properly, if Israel had lived according to these laws properly, and had followed this covenant the way they were supposed to, by living their lives this way, they would have naturally been a light to the nations around them. And that was the intent. We just got done reading about a group of people who were coming to this area from Crete. Okay, so this region of the world, even at this point in time, had travel and communications with other nations. They came from Egypt. These nations around them are from the north, from the east, from the south. We've even got people traveling via ships from the west, and they're going to live next to the Phoenicians, who also originally came from Europe. So they're going to have people around them that eventually by the end of the Old Testament we're going to go as far as Persia, and then and in the New Testament we're going to go as far west as Rome. And Paul's goal, although we never know for certain in the New Testament if he makes it there, his ultimate goal is to go as far west as Spain, which is basically as far as he could possibly go at that point in time. So Israel. That's Paul. Okay, that's in the first century A.D., 1500 plus years after this. But even at this time, they had ships coming from Europe, and Egypt had contact with nations in Europe. Um, and so they had, these nations were all linked together, and they all did have commerce. And we read about Job. Job later on in the 800s BC is going to try to get on the ship and go to Spain. He's not going to make it there, but he's going to try to get away from God's mission for him. Not Job, Jonah, not Job. Jonah, the prophet Jonah is going to try to go to Spain to get away from God's mission for him to go into Nineveh and preach. And so they had, and there's no reason, the only reason why he didn't make it there is because God directly intervened. So they had the ability. Now again, that's 700 years later, but so they had the ability to move around even at this early stage in history. And if Israel when Jonah is thrown off of the ship, what are the sailors who are still on the ship doing as he's floating in the water and sinking, about to be eaten? They're sacrificing to God. And so Jonah's, even though he didn't intend to do this, Jonah's testimony, based on what happened to him, led those sailors to believe in his God after they threw him off the ship. So Israel's actions, Israel's lifestyle, the way they lived was supposed to attract other people around them who would then want to live it. That's why God says over and over again, treat the alien among you as you would treat your own brother. And God's intent was never to have his promises and his offerings be only for this specific group of people who physically descended from the right son of Abraham. It was always meant to be broader and scoped. Now, it is true, though, that as far as I can tell, as far as I can see in the Old Testament, he doesn't actually explicitly tell them to go out and proselytize the other nations. But they were supposed to do so by virtue of the lives they were supposed to live as covenant children of God.